if we're playing musical chairs, we need to get in a chair. So my point would be, do you really want, like, how much more money are you extracting from ESPN if you're the SEC and you add Florida State and Clemson? Another what? $50 million to that television contract? $100 million, maybe? When does it end? Like, would you want a 20-team conference? Like, would you add 2 more after that? Would you grab North Carolina and Miami? Or would you at some point say, I'm done at 18, guys? Because a lot of people want them to be done at 16.
There's, just talking to some of the people we talked to in other markets and SEC markets, sounds to me like they feel there's an appetite for 20 teams in the SEC.
Wow.
Now, whether or not, how that works out, we'd have to see. But again, if it's maybe 3 or 4 teams from the ACC or maybe poach somebody else, and then maybe a couple schools from the ACC go to the Big Ten. I mean, I think that's the path for Florida State. To me, the most likely path has to be this breaking up legitimately.
Chaos.
So you don't even have to have the whole battle over the grant of rights, which nobody knows for sure who's going to win. I know the ESPN people talk very confidently, and the ACC non-FSU, non-Clemson people talk very confidently about the grant of rights, but it's not their lawyers that have to go fight that battle. And so if there's any concern on that standpoint, it may behoove ESPN to help make something happen, to make the best of a situation. The best situation for ESPN is for it to stay exactly the way it is. But if they feel like that may not happen, now they've got to get involved with making the best of it. So is there a incentive for them to expand and maybe reduce payments for some of the schools? Maybe if it means we're protecting their overall turf
long term
and keeping the Big Ten out of the state of Florida.
I think the more chaos we have, the better off we are. I think you want this negotiation, which doesn't appear to be going very well for the Pac-12. They may end up on Apple and nobody will ever see them again. I would
alongside the ACC network if Florida State and Clemson leave.
Yeah. So, I mean, you want teams to get poached. You want them to continue to be poached. And I do think to some extent, Corey, I don't know if you agree with this, but Michael Alford wasn't just talking, obviously, to the ACC, establishment. He was talking to the other member institutions and in some ways, basically greenlighting it's go time. But also, I think telling some of these other schools, like, if you can get a better deal, you need to leave. Because he would love to get to the magic number of 8. I mean, if you can, suddenly nothing's binding. We no longer have a conference. We no longer an agreement. If all of a sudden Louisville and these other schools realize, man, we're going to get left out. And our games, where are people going to watch our games? I mean, more and more, the relationship with the conference and ESPN, I mean, it's an afterthought almost. I mean, I would think if you're those schools, what if the Big 12 calls you tomorrow? Right. And they're like, we want to solidify our situation. We've just got to, by the way, right now, our deal is better than the ACC's deal. So you'll make more money. Why don't you come on over here? We're trying to make sure we have something that is viable. We want Louisville and we want, whatever the hell, Virginia, and then all of a sudden people start to feel the pinch of, I got to go. Because that's what happened the last time. Everybody got scared and they decided really quickly to begin negotiating.
Yeah. Who else in the ACC why would the Big 12 want Louisville or Virginia for that matter?
I mean, it's better than what they got now.
And the flip side, why would Louisville and Virginia leave the ACC for kind of the same thing in a worse place? And I don't mean the worst place like the Midwest is bad. I mean, Louisville is on the East Coast, Virginia's on the East Coast. They don't want to go play in Lubbock. And they don't want to go play in Ames.
Virginia had to do that. Other people had to do that. I mean, if you're making $5 to $7 million per year less in your current contract situation and they offer you more, you're going to go where the money is.
Or if you feel like it's the only alternative you have, if the bus is leaving
and the conference is disbanding,
well, good luck then.
Well, I got that, but I think we're a few steps away from that. I don't think we're close to the bus leaving. So right now, you have to convince other schools to go try to find another conference when they might be perfectly content where they are. Like Louisville's not trying to win football championships. Neither is Virginia.
But I think Jeff's point was that was kind of the message he was sending Friday was, listen, we're getting the hell out of here.
And when we do.
And it also sends the message to those other conferences, the Big 12. And he specifically brought up the Big 12 and the Pac-12 expansion, not in discussions and what's going to happen of things opening, not because Florida State's going to the Pac-12, but because, hey, listen, you guys are trying to figure out your situations. You might want to talk to some of these guys because we're letting them know we're not hanging here.
Yeah, and I would guess we have always been under the impression that Florida State's allies in this fight start with Clemson. All right, so you have an alliance with Clemson. We believe that, right?
That's a good friend. It's a good friend to have, by the way.
That's tried and true.
Yeah,
those two are together.
Yeah, Florida State's not a lone wolf in this. I mean, maybe publicly they currently are, But behind the scenes, they know they have Clemson's vote too. So Clemson wants out, we want out, we're like-minded, similar fan bases, etc. All right, so you have that. I was asked this question on another show. Who else would you have? Well, I would imagine Miami. It'd be one of those
They're an
rare
interesting
moments.
case.
Yeah, they are a weird case.
Because the Big Ten might be interested in them because they are an AAU school.
That's correct.
And so there's some, and then plus they would get them in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
There's some reasons they would be interested. I don't know how interested, if the SEC could get Florida State, I don't know how interested you are in Miami at that point.
No, I don't think the SEC would be. I think the Big Ten would come calling to schools like North Carolina, Virginia, and Miami.
Georgia Tech.
Poor Georgia Tech. Nobody wants Georgia Tech.
I mean, y'all think about what y'all are saying, though. Y'all think about what y'all are saying. What in the world does Georgia Tech and Virginia, or even North Carolina football, bring to the Big Ten that they don't already have? Another
recruiting and TV sets. I mean, that's the very going back
Georgia
to the
Tech's not bringing you TV sets. That's the same mistake ACC made with Syracuse and Boston College.
Dude, no, it's not a matter of just who watches the games. It's a matter of you charging those cable companies to carry your network. If you have a Big Ten network and maybe they're not charging them right now in Georgia, you can charge.
Yeah, they are, buddy. I've been watching the Big Ten network for 15 years against my will.
But it's tiered. If they don't have a school within a certain distance, they can't charge as much.
I don't think they're going to go after Georgia Tech.
I'm just saying that.
I know we're just throwing it out there.
There are reasons.
I think Georgia Tech is screwed.
And those schools, and the Big Ten schools would want to be able to recruit the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, I think if you're the Big Ten and you want to expand footprint and you want eyes to sets, you got to look at brands. Miami is a brand that would sell there, and it also fits their kind of guidelines academically and otherwise. Like I could see them if they wanted a footprint from Miami to LA, as we said. I mean, that's an amazing reach to sell in terms of TV contracts.
Possibly to Washington.
Yeah, I mean,
but
Miami.
You also want, at the end of the day, is some teams to compete for national championships. They've won one national championship at that conference in 23 years.
Yeah.
You bring in Georgia Tech. Sorry, not even Georgia Tech, Virginia, North Carolina, any of those state schools aren't doing that for you. If you want to compete with the SEC, it's Florida State and Clemson. And I know I guess they care about the AAU? What do we call this thing that they care so much about?
Yeah.
They also care about championships and being at they want to get on the level of SEC and surpass the SEC. They aren't doing that with Washington and Oregon. They're not doing that with Virginia and North Carolina. They would do that with Florida State and Clemson, in my opinion, because you give those two programs that kind of Big Ten money, look out. But I say all that to say this.
First of all, if the SEC, one real quick, if the Big Ten takes Clemson, it would be insane from what they've done academically through the years. But anyway,
it doesn't fit.
Right, but I mean, we're in 2023, right? The world has changed. The landscape has changed. I mean,
the people in the president's offices have a part of this decision, is all I'm saying. They're
right, sure. But I mean, granted. So, but if they took Florida State and Clemson or offered Florida State and Clemson or Florida State and Miami, the SEC doesn't want that to happen. The SEC would then, I think, counteroffer because they know where Florida State wants to be, and they certainly know where Clemson wants to be. And I think they would, even if it doesn't make the SEC all that much stronger because they're already really strong, it weakens their competition. And I think that's the battle that comes down to. I think Florida State fans would desperately want to be in the SEC more than the Big Ten, but I think all Florida State fans would rather be in the Big Ten than the current state of the ACC.
Especially if there's a southeast kind of portion of the Big Ten.
To divide that up.
Yeah, if you get to beat up on Virginia and North Carolina every year, you take that. Bring in Carolina and Virginia. You don't have to go. But, I mean, it'd be cool. I mean, it'd be cool to be in a conference with USC, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. I mean, it's not like it would be awful. Now, you also got Minnesota, Rutgers, Purdue. I get it. But yeah, I think that's what it'll all come down to, right? It'll be the Big Ten versus the SEC for where these schools end up.
Except I don't think, I mean, you're so focused on FSU and SEC and Clemson. I just think it has to be more than that. The easiest path to these teams getting out is for the ACC to disintegrate.
Yeah, 3 go to the Big 12, 3 go to the SEC, 3 go to the Big 10. Well, everybody's running for the hills.
And at some point, if your TV partners are involved with that, if they say, look, we've got to make this happen. All right, maybe the SEC or whoever's got to deal with the Big 12 says, okay, we're going to find a home to get those votes. We got to find a home for Louisville. We got to find a home. So why you could say, well, why would they want to be there? Or why would that conference want them? But it may be part of the overall, horse trading.
And also, if your conference is going to cease to exist, you have to play somewhere. So yes, they're going to want to be involved in that. By the way, I want to answer this question. Glenn writes, where is Jim Phillips in all of this? In a fetal position in the corner.
Or on the train to Chicago.
Yeah.
To be the new Big Ten commissioner.
Glenn, nobody can find him.
Do you think that might have something to do with the timing, Ira? That maybe there's not even a head of the ACC right now, and Alford has a pretty good idea?
No, I think so. I think Jim, my impression is that Jim Phillips is what can he do? It's what we saw at the ACC kickoff. Like, he knows the situation they're in.
Emasculated.
And what can he say? And I know you make fun of him all the time. We all made fun of him,
buddy,
for the gated communities talk.
It was ridiculous.
But I also don't know what he could have said. The situation stinks. And that's really the bottom line with all this.
How about that?
Here's the thing. Here's
How about this sucks?
Guys, I'm not here to pull the wool over your eyes out here on
real talk
on a Thursday morning. I'm not here to do that. You know it and I know it. We are in trouble.
We've got
to sound in the fire alarm.
So run for the hills.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing though. Like, so he knows the situation they're in, but at the bottom, to me, I think you want to like take that a step further. The revenue sharing stuff, all of these different things to try to placate people, like none of that works anymore. I mean, it's this conference sucks. And I love some of the people in the ACC who, some of the media people in the ACC that we know and we're friends with, but who covers some of those schools who are saying things like, well, if Miami ever carried their weight, or if Florida State hadn't had 4 or 5 year slide, it's like, yeah, except if you guys have ever done anything, like look at those TV ratings.
Yeah.
Nobody watches those schools. You know why people watch Florida State? It's not because Florida State's the oldest school. They're not. They're a young school. It's not because it's their biggest school. It's because they were good in football
for a real long time.
So people want to watch them play football. All your schools have sucked forever. So that's not going to change.
No, it also made me laugh, by the way, that graphic. I was buckled over laughing when I went back and watched that whole thing, because how much joy did it bring Michael Alford to pull up those numbers and be like, let's look at North Carolina and their useless ass. Let's look at these numbers at Duke. We've all been living this lie that Duke matters. They don't matter even a little bit. And I said yesterday, he could have been like, Lenore Ryan pulls these numbers. Lise McCray pulls these numbers, or whatever small North Carolina school you want to name.
He should have put the crying Jordan over each.
No, that would have been so good. We all stood up and given a standing ovation.